One of the biggest mistakes law students make is thinking that they're supposed to memorize the entire judgments word for word. Guys, that is exactly why so many students suffer unnecessarily in law school. Some students open a 75-page judgment and suddenly start reading every paragraph like it's a Netflix series. And by the time they finish, they are confused, exhausted, and somehow still don't know what the actual legal principle is. And trust me, as somebody who has worked as a mark, you will be tired of this. As somebody who has worked as a mark for almost 2 years during my undergrad, I immediately tell the difference between a student who understands a case and a student who simply memorized random paragraphs emotionally and hoping for the best. What's up, guys? My name is Tabang. I recently completed my LLB and I'm currently doing my LLM in environmental law at the University of Cape Town. And in today's video, I want to teach you how smart law students actually read cases, not in a robotic academic way, but strategically, because honestly, once you understand what matters in a case, law school becomes far less overwhelming. Most students are not struggling because they're incapable. They're struggling because nobody teaches them how to approach judgments efficiently, right? And before we continue, guys, definitely check out the membership session on the channel if you want deeper law school support. For members, I'm planning to upload full case breakdown workshops, assignment guidance, one-on-one consultations, exam strategy sessions, and detailed problem question walkthroughs, right? Some of them are already uploaded because honestly, sometimes students don't need more notes. They need somebody to explain things practically and strategically. Memberships also help support the channel and they help me continue making more educational content consistently. So definitely check that out if you want a deeper law school survival support. Now, the first thing I need you to understand is this. When lecturers prescribe cases, they are usually not expecting you to memorize every single word written by the judge. That is one of the biggest misconceptions in law school, right? Lecturers normally are looking for whether you understand the important parts of the judgment. And those important parts can usually be broken down into a few key things, right? The facts, the legal issue, the court's reasoning, the legal principle, and then the final decision, right? This is what actually matters because you are not studying for judicial fan fiction. And honestly, guys, one of the funniest things that I noticed is that some of us as students, we highlight the entire PDF and we do it so emotionally. Right? Print it out, you highlight it, or on your computer, you have so many colors, right? You can open someone's notes and the whole judgment is yellow, right? At that point, you are not highlighting important information anymore. You are decorating that document. That's it. Smart law students don't try to memorize everything. They identify what matters legally, right? So let's talk about the first thing smart students look for when reading a case, namely the facts. The facts tell you what actually happened, who did what conflict arose. For me, I love cases because I love reading the facts. I love legal gossip. It's just beautiful, right? Who did what? What conflict arose? What circumstances brought the parties before the court? And honestly, if you don't understand the facts, the rest of the judgment becomes confusing because you don't even understand what legal problem the court is trying to solve, right? But here's another mistake that we make as students. We tend to memorize every single fact, even when half of the facts are not legally important, right? Smart students would identify the legally relevant facts. Those are the facts directly connected to the legal issue before the court, right? So after understanding the facts, then you have to immediately identify the legal issue. In simple terms, what question is the court being asked to answer, right? This is probably one of the most important parts of case reading, because once you understand the issue, everything else in the judgment suddenly becomes easier to follow, right? The court's reasoning, the arguments, the court's reasoning, the arguments, and the final outcome all revolve around that issue. And honestly, one thing I noticed while marking scripts is that students who understand the issue usually write much stronger answers, because now they understand the purpose of the case instead of just repeating the information blindly, right? Now, after identifying the issue, the smart kids or the smart students focus on the court's reasoning. This is where the judge explains why the decision was reached. And honestly, this is usually where students become overwhelmed, because judges write in a very detailed and formal style, right? Some judgments genuinely feel like philosophical novels, but smart students don't panic. They focus on identifying the reasoning that is connected directly to the legal issue. Why did the court agree or disagree? What principles did the court rely on? What legal tests were applied? This is what matters, right? And this brings us to one of the most important concepts in case law, ratio decidendi, right? And the obiter dicta. Students are usually terrified of these terms in the first year because they sound complicated. But honestly, the concept is simpler than people think. The ratio decidendi is basically the legal principle or the rule that forms the basis of the court's decision, right? This is the binding part that future courts and lecturers actually care about. And the obiter dicta, on the other hand, are the comments, the observations, or side discussions made by the judges that are not essentially to the decision itself. And honestly, guys, ratio is the part of your lecturer, like actually wants you to understand properly. So let us do this practically using the Kamishel case. That is the Kamishel versus the Minister of Safety and Security, because it is one of the important constitutional and delete cases we often encounter as students, right? So now, as smart students, they don't immediately try to memorize the entire judgment emotionally. First, they identify the facts. In simple terms, the applicant suffered harm after a dangerous individual was released despite consent about his violent behavior. The legal issue then becomes whether the state could be held liable for failing to protect the applicant properly, right? Once smart students understand the issue, they focus on the reasoning, right? The Constitutional Court basically emphasized that the state has constitutional obligations connected to protecting rights, and that courts must develop the common law in line with constitutional values. The important principle on the ratio decidendi is not every paragraph written by the judge. It is the core legal principle emerging from the judgment. And honestly, guys, this is why smart students make short case notes instead of rewriting entire judgments. A good case note usually contains the name of the case, the facts, the legal issue, the legal principle, and the outcome. This is enough in most situations. Some students waste hours rewriting the entire judgments word for word and then wonder why they are burnt out, before exams even start. Another important thing smart students understand is that cases must always be connected to broader legal principles, right? Cases are not isolated stories, they are authority supporting legal rules. So when you study a case, ask yourself, what principle does this case teach me? What area of law does it develop? Why is my lecturer prescribing this case specifically? Those questions can help you understand what you need to study and what you need to study strategically instead of emotionally, right? And trust me, as somebody who has marked the 100th time, right? Before markers can immediately see when a student generally understands a case versus when they memorize random lines without understanding the principle. Some students quote beautiful sentences from the judgments but completely fail to explain the legal significance of the case itself, right? And honestly, understanding will almost always outperform memorization in law school. And this is also why I think many students become unnecessarily discouraged in law school. They think that smart students are reading faster because they are naturally gifted geniuses. But honestly, many strong students are simply reading strategically. They know what matters and what doesn't. They are not trying to memorize the entire legal system in one sitting. And honestly, for for members, I have already uploaded some of the videos where I did the full case breakdown sessions where we unpack major South African cases step by step, cases like the State versus Makwanyane, Kamishel Pharmaceutical, fuel retailers, and many others. Because sometimes students understand theory generally, but still struggle to break down judgments properly. And guided case analysis can generally change the way you approach law school, right? Because instead of you going through that case, if I go through it with you and then when you're going through it alone, it makes it much easier because you know what to look for already because I've already made this summary for you. So I'm also going to make a lot of case summaries and upload on the members section. Now, let me quickly save you some pain by discussing, the mistakes students make when reading cases. The first mistake is passive reading. Students read without asking questions or identifying issues. The second mistake is trying to memorize entire judgments emotionally instead of understanding the principle. The third mistake is failing to identify the ratio desidendi properly. And another mistake is over highlighting everything until the entire PDF looks like it's radioactive, right? Honestly, guys, learning how to read cases strategically changes everything in law school. Once you stop trying to memorize every word and start focusing on the legal principles, reasoning, and the structure, judgments become far less intimidating. And trust me, sometimes the difference between struggling students and strong students is not intelligence, it is strategy. And again, guys, if you want deeper support, assignment guidance, members only case breakdowns, one-on-one consultations, exam preparation sessions, definitely consider joining the memberships. The public videos are helpful, but the members only content is where we really start cooking properly, right? And honestly, memberships also help support the channel and allow me to continue making more educational content. If this video helped you, make sure that you subscribe because next we are going to be talking about how to make proper law notes and how to survive open book exams if you have any, and how to answer administrative law questions properly. And trust me, guys, we are surviving this degree together. Together, sisonke.